Okay, so welcome to episode 4 of our inventory system tutorial series. Where we left it off is if we go down here and then we hit play, you can see that we've got our empty inventory slots here, and as we go over the slots we pick up these two sort of different items. Some of them can stack, the green one can't. There was only one of them anyway. You can see that they've just got these ugly white sprites in them at the minute. So let's get some sprites downloaded so we can actually start to see stuff appear in our inventory. There's this Cozy Farm asset pack, which is a really nice pack. It includes a lot if you pay for it, but you can get it for free. There is a free version. So if you click no thanks, just take me to the downloads, you get this free version .zip and just hit download on that. What you'll get is you'll get this PNG with just some basic tiles. So if we just drag this into our project, so I'm going to go over to our assets folder. I'm going to right click, create folder. Let's type graphics. So I'm just going to drag this PNG in, and we're going to need to do a couple of things first. So the first thing is we want to mark this as a sprite. We want to set the sprite mode to multiple. Filter mode, we want to change to no filter, point. Compression, we can choose none, and then we need to hit apply. This is one image with lots of sprites on it, so we need to slice the image up into its multiple parts. And to do that, we need to access the sprite editor. But if you've just started a normal 3D project in Unity, you won't have the 2D sprite package installed and you'll get this error. So we just need to go up to Window, Package Manager, go over to Unity Registry, and then choose 2D Sprite and just install the 2D Sprite package. So with that installed, we can just close out the Package Manager, select our image again, choose the Sprite Editor, and then we just for what we need, we just want these two sprites here, the potato and the tomato. So if we hit slice, and then just choose automatic, it's going to slice up all of the, it's going to try and detect things to slice. So where you've got a PNG, it'll do a cut around them. It's not worked perfectly for this whole image, but we just wanted these two sprites. So we've got those sprites there. So we can, we've hit slice, so we can just click apply. And now if we expand this out, you can see that what it's done is it's, sliced them up kind of wrongly. But here's our potato and our tomato. So now if we go back over to our scriptable objects and go to test item, and I'm just going to rename this to tomato. I'm going to select tomato, and let's type tomato there. This is a tomato. I'm going to have a maximum stack size of 5 still, and I'm just going to choose the tomato from for the icon. And then I'm just going to do this, and I will say potato. And I say potato and tomato because I won't say tomato. So with potato, we will choose the icon, and we'll pick the potato icon, and we'll say the display name is potato. And this is a potato. So now we've got our two test items. So now with our test item 1, this is the tomato, which is it's worked out well because it's red. So I'm just going to rename this to tomato. I'm just going to delete the other ones so I don't have to rename all of them. For the test item 3, let's call it potato. And I might actually just change the color of it to be more potato color, because why not? So rename this to potato. Let's pick more of a potato color, which kind of that color, I suppose. So now we've got a potato and a tomato. The potato won't stack. It's got a maximum stack size of 1, so it's not going to carry on stacking. So now we've got our tomato and our potato. We can just, I'm just going to select them both and drag them down to the bottom. I'm just going to duplicate them a couple of times. So I'm going to get the move tool, Control D, let's duplicate them. Control D, duplicate them again. Duplicate them some more. Then I'm going to get all of the tomatoes. Because these stack, we want a few of these. so we can actually pick them up. And actually, why don't I do that with the potatoes as well, just so we've got multiple things to work with. So if we now hit, actually let's select all of these and just bring them down to the bottom, and then I'm going to group all of these together under a object just called items, just to keep the hierarchy organized. So let's drag that in. We can just collapse that. So we've got our items here now, and you'll see that as we go over them, now the icons that we've set should appear in our inventory when we pick them up. So there's our tomato. You can see that we've got 5 tomatoes are stacking. And then the potatoes don't stack and they fill up our inventory. Now our inventory's full, we can't pick up any more. And I don't like the font here being black, so let's just go over to the canvas, play a hotbar, get one of our slots and just open it up. And I'm going to change the item count to white. And we can maybe give it an outline, so just check the outline just so we can definitely see it over the images. So there you go, we've got five tomatoes, so we just need to choose our prefab and then hit apply all, and that'll apply it to the rest of them. So as we hit play, you see that when we've got more than one item, it comes up and shows us the item in our inventory. So now the next thing we want to do is we want to start being able to click on the items and actually do stuff. Because at the moment nothing happens when we click on the items. We want to be able to pick it up and manipulate this mouse item to show the item that we've got selected, and we want to remove it from the slot and do lots of interesting stuff with it. Just to show how that's going to work, we're going to run over these items and then we can pick them up, move them around and place them down. So this is what we're going to be working towards in this episode, moving them between the slots. So let's go back over to our scripts folder, and we've got our UI scripts, and I believe we need to open up the inventory display script. So here's our inventory display here's our inventory display script. In the last episode, you know, we set this up and we set up the static inventory display as a that inherits from this class, but all displays are gonna have slots that can be clicked, and at the minute it just prints out slot clicked when we click it. What we want to do is we want to start picking up items and moving them around. So let's just get to work on that straight away. So first thing we want to do, we're going to need a few different checks because there's a lot of different things that need to happen based on a few different contexts. So if the clicked slot has an item and the mouse doesn't have an item, then we will need to pick up that item, because there's nothing currently on the mouse. We also need to account for if the clicked slot doesn't have an item, but the mouse does have an item, then we need to place the mouse item, place mouse item into the empty slot. We also want to check to see whether both slots have an item. And if they do, we need to decide what we want to do there. For example, are both items the same? If so, we want to combine the stacks if we can. So if we've got, 3 tomatoes on our inventory bar and we're holding 4 from a different slot, can we combine them? And if they're if different items, then we want to swap them. then swap the items. And actually this one has a bit of an extra step. We want to see that is the slot plus is the slot stack size plus the mouse stack size greater than the slot's maximum stack size that it can take? If so, we need to account for that. So we need to, if so, take from mouse. So we need to take, so if the maximum stack size for tomatoes is 5, and we've currently got 3 in the stack, but we've got 4 on our mouse, then when we click on the item, we're going to take 2 from the mouse to fill the stack, and then we're going to leave 2 on the mouse. Right, bad math. I'll just show what I mean here. So if we've got so these hearts, they stack to a maximum of 5. We've got 3 in this stack. If I split this and let's just get 4. So this 3, it can only go up to 5. When I've got 4 on my mouse, if I click here, it's going to fill this stack with 2, because 3 plus 2 is 5, so it's going to take 2 from the 4 that I'm currently holding. So as I click, I've now got 2 left on the mouse, that stack's full. And when it is, and we're also accounting for, if this stack's full, and we're trying to place this on top of it, it's just going to swap them. It'll just swap them over. So that's what we're kind of building up towards as well. And I'm not sure if we'll get there in this episode, but we also need to check if the player is holding shift key. And if they are, we want to split the stack. So we want to separate the stack into 2 different stacks. So we want to leave some in the slot and put some onto the mouse. So there's quite a lot to get through here, a lot of functionality to build. We'll try and do it in one episode. We'll see how we get on. So the first thing we'll tackle is this. If the click slot has an item and the mouse doesn't, let's pick it up. Let's put it onto the mouse. So if we make some room here. So this slot clicks. When we click on the button that's attached to the slot, it's going to reach up to the parent display. If we look at the inventory slot UI, we've got on slot clicked, which we've added as a listener to the button's on click event. And it's going to reach up to the parent display and it's going to say call slot clicked, and it's going to pass in itself so we know which slot exactly was clicked. So here we can say if this clicked slot, and just so we know exactly what's going on, I'm going to rename this to clicked UI slot. So if clicked UI slot dot inventory assigned inventory slot dot data item data is not equal to null. So if the clicked UI slot has an item in it, so it's not null, and the mouse inventory item dot inventory slot. So why is that not working? Why can't I get that? Oh, because I've not actually added an inventory slot to the mouse. So let's go back to the mouse. We just need to add an inventory slot to the mouse. So we can do a public inventory slot called inventory slot. So we're going to be coming back to this in a second. So I'm just going to move them, and I'm just going to close all these other ones that we don't need. So let's go back to our inventory display class. So we've got click slot item data, and then mouse inventory item dot inventory slot dot item data is not equal to null, is equal to null. So if the slot has an item in it and the mouse doesn't, then we can pick up the item and assign it to the mouse. So it'll be in here that we split the stack if they're holding the shift key. So that's if that, and then we'll do an else. But for now, let's just do mouse inventory item data dot, and then we're going to need to make a function on our mouse inventory item called update mouse slot. And then we're just going to pass in the clicked UI slots assigned inventory slot. And then we're going to call clicked UI slot clear slot, because there won't be an item in that slot anymore because we'll have picked it up. So let's go make this function. So it's update mouse slot. I'm just going to copy it so we know it's called exactly what we want it to be called. And I'm going to make a public void and then paste our update mouse slot. And this is going to take in an inventory slot, and it's going to be called just inv slot. So here we're going to take our inventory slot, and just to match this up with the clicked UI slot, I'm going to right click and let's rename this to assigned inventory slot, so it matches, just so it matches this, so we know kind of what we're working with. So assigned inventory slot dot assign item inv slot, which is another function we need to make on our inventory slot. And I'm just going to call this inv slot. And we'll do that in a second. So the next thing we want to do is we want to set our item sprite equal to the inventory slot dot item data dot icon. So the item that's in the slot that we're putting onto our mouse, we need to set our mouse's sprite to the icon. We want to set the item count dot text equal to the inventory slot dot stack size dot to string, and we need to set the item sprite dot color equal to color dot white, so it becomes visible again. So obviously we set it to clear initially. So now we need to make this assign item on our inventory slot class. Let's go over there. Here we can say public void assign item, and we can pass in inventory slot inv slot, and we can just say here if the item data that that's currently on this slot is equal to the item data that we're picking up. So the inventory slots item data. So if this inventory slot has some item data in it and we're trying to add more of that item to it, then we can just call add to stack and pass in the inventory slot dot stack size. So this is going to combine the items. And we can say else item data is equal to the inventory slot data that we're passing in. So inv slot dot item data. We're going to set our stack size back to 0, and then we're going to add the inventory slot dot stack size to that. So this is going to completely override the item that was in the slot if they're different. So we're basically swapping them. Well, we're not swapping them, we're completely overriding it. So if the mouse's assigned inventory slot had a potato on it, and we passed in an inventory slot with a tomato on it, we're going to assign the tomato to the assigned inventory slot of the mouse. So hopefully that all makes sense. So let's go back over to our inventory display class. So if we've done this, then we can just return, because we won't need to check any of the other stuff because we've already accounted for what we're doing here. So let's just hit save and go back over to Unity. So if we hit play and we walk over our tomatoes and we click the slot, it's now going to set it on our mouse inventory slot item, which doesn't follow our mouse, which will fix that. I'm also going to do what I did with the text down here as well. I'm just going to set the mouse slot text to white with a slight outline. So now when we hit play, pick up an item, So we've got 5 tomatoes on our mouse slot. So let's let it actually follow the mouse around now. So to do that, we go over to our mouse item data. And because this is a mono behavior, it can get a update function. So we can do void update. And what we want to do here, we want to say if our assigned inventory slot dot item data is not equal to null. So remember, this is the way we check whether the mouse has an item actually on it. So if that's not equal to null, then we want to say transform.position is equal to mouse. We need to be using Unity Engine.input system for this. So using Unity Engine.input system, we want to say mouse.current.position.read value. So if we have an item, set the item's object position to the mouse's current position. So it'll follow the mouse around. And we can go further here to actually delete the item. So if we click outside of the inventory, we can delete an item. So to do that, we can get this function here, which I found on, I think it was Stack Overflow, which to use this, we need to be using Unity Engine.event systems. And we say pointer event data current position equals new pointer event data event system.current. We're going to get the event data's position and set that equal to the mouse's position. And we're doing a raycast, and this will return a list of items that it hits, and it'll hit UI elements. It won't hit stuff in the game world. So if that list is greater than 0, then we've obviously hit UI, so it'd return true. If it doesn't hit any UI, it'd be false. So we can say under here, if the mouse.current.left button was pressed this frame, and we're not is pointer over UI object, so we're not currently hovering over an object, then we can say clear slot, which is a function we just need to make down here. We can say private void, no, public void, because we'll need this later on. So public void clear slot. And this is going to get our assigned inventory slot and call clear slot on that. So we're going to empty out the inventory slot. And then we need to reset our item count.text to display nothing. We want to set the item sprite.color equal to color.clear. And we can actually just null out the item sprite. So item sprite.sprite is equal to null as well. So now we go back to our mouse object and we hit play. You see that if we pick up an item, it will now follow the mouse. You might not want it directly under the mouse, you might want it slightly offset, so we can do that. So we can do that easily. So if we hit 2D and look at our mouse, so the mouse object is sort of anchored here, and this position in the center will be what follows the mouse. So we just want to offset the image by 50, and then we can do -50. So the left corner is now at the pivot. And then we can just drag the text into place. So if we go to item count and drag this down. And one thing you'll notice is that it was behind the UI. When we click it, it goes behind the UI. What we want is we want to get our mouse object and just drag that to it. It needs to be at the bottom of the canvas, which will draw it on top of everything else. We can hit play and you'll see that it appears on top of the UI now. And one thing you'll notice is if we pick it up, it doesn't actually fully work when we click to delete the item unless we get away from the mouse quite quickly. The reason for that is that we need to make the mouse image not be a raycast target, otherwise when we click we'll always be over a UI element because it's following the mouse around obviously. And under the item count text as well, we can come to raycast target, and let's just uncheck that. So now when we go back and hit play, and we pick up an item, you see that we pick it up and we can click off our UI and it'll delete the item, and that slot is now empty. It's not just the kind of representation of the slot, that the actual inventory slot has been emptied as well. So we can pick up our tomato, it's out of the slot because it's now on the mouse, and we click and it's gone. There's nothing on the mouse and there's nothing in the hotbar, and we can pick it up. We've now got the potato on the mouse, we delete that, so that's gone out of the game, and we can carry on picking stuff up. So now we could pick up items and we could delete them, but now we need to be able to pick them up and place them back in slots, so we can move them between our inventory slots and keep stuff organized. So let's go and work on that. Done that, that's all working. So let's go back over to our inventory display. So we've achieved this. Let's just go up. Okay, so let's have a look. So the next thing is the click slot doesn't have an item, but the mouse does. So let's place the mouse item into the empty slots. Let's move them around. So here we're basically doing this, but in reverse. We're doing the kind of flip of that. So let's make a new if statement. So we can say if, and let's just bring this up so we know what we're working on. So if the clicked UI slot dot assigned inventory slot dot item data is equal to null, so the click slot doesn't have an item in it, and the mouse inventory item dot assigned inventory slot dot item data is not equal to null, so the mouse does have an item. Let's place the mouse item into the empty slot in the same way that we do here. So here we just need to say clicked slot UI dot assigned inventory slot, and then here we need to assign the item directly. So we can say mouse inventory item dot assigned inventory slot dot item data. So after that, we need to call clicked UI slot dot update UI slot because we've put a new item in it. So let's just refresh it. Now we could put it, in this one and pass in the slot, but this is also called when we pick up an item from the ground. And if we reassign the item when we pick it up, it causes some weird issues and it adds multiple to it for some reason. I'm not 100% sure why that bug was occurring, but so this is the way around it though. You just assign the item directly and then you just refresh the slot. And then we need to do what we're doing here, but for the mouse item. So we just need to say mouse inventory item dot clear slot. So if we go back over to Unity, let's just hit play. So as we go over, we can pick up items, we can pick them up on our mouse and we can delete them. We can carry on picking up items. It'll fill up the stack when we pick them up, and then it started a new stack once that stack was full. And we could pick up the items, move them and drop them into the different slots now. And if we look at our player on our inventory, we're actually moving them, we're actually moving the slots to their corresponding slot here. So we can move it and put it into the second slot, we can put it into the last slot. See, this is kind of working as we intended now. So we can pick up these potatoes and we can place them in this slot. And you see that if we pick up the potato and try and place it somewhere else, nothing happens. It has to go kind of into a blank slot. So the next thing we need to work on is swapping slots and splitting stacks. And we will do that in the next video. And I think that will be enough for this video. So we'll do that next time. So in the next video, we'll finish up our thing here. So we'll swap the items and we'll set up stack splitting as well. And we can we'll also set it up so we'll be able to combine the stacks once we've split them as well, because it's kind of using the similar sort of functionality. So that's it for this video. If you're watching this as they go live, as always, the full series is up on my Patreon already. That's patreon.com/danposs. If you've struggled with anything in the video or need some help or something's not quite working, either leave a comment below, or better yet, come join the Discord server. An invite for that is in the description of this video, and either me or maybe someone else would be able to help you. It's probably a quicker way of getting a response than here on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.